MicroStrategy around, basically within the last 6 months made it cool, Michael Saylor and all that.
Yeah.
I think PayPal made it real. And now
Mm.
everyone is filing in and basically saying, all right, how can we get exposure to this digital asset class, in particular, Bitcoin?
Thank you to my sponsor, Cake Wallet, where you can store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero safely on your iOS and Android devices. MetalPay, how banking was meant to be. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am super excited. I've got Jesse Phillips, the business development manager for Binance Pool, here just to chat all about mining and pools and what they've been building over at Binance. So Jesse, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Leah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'd love to just kick off with hearing a little bit about your background in the space and what kind of led you to working at Binance.
Sure. It's an interesting story. Obviously, like a lot of people, I got my start really in the ICO days, and back then it was kind of a wild west. Like I don't know how really to describe it any better than it was a financial playground, and new ICOs were popping up left and right. And so I got involved with one that was doing actually a double-sided kids product. So it's kind of a dual-sided marketplace. And we wrote the white paper, built out the token economics, and all of a sudden we were doing it in Massachusetts at the time, and they came down on us and everyone else. So I think we got a little too much publicity. We were in the Boston Globe front page, and
Oh, wow.
and they kind of put the kibosh on everyone. And so later they determined it was a utility token, but at that point we really couldn't do anything. So I really wanted to work in crypto. I loved crypto at the time. I had spent enough time where I was like, this is exactly what I want to do, but I wanted to do something a little bit more stable. And mining, which I had already been doing on an old GPU in my PC at the time, seemed like, something that could be quantified a lot better. And that was definitely an understatement, because for the next 2 years, essentially myself and my co-founder modeled pretty much every ASIC, including theoretical ASICs, all the GPU electric advancements, and we used a modified version of Moore's law to really understand network difficulty, historical chain data, a little bit of that, and we would model against historical price, just price valuation, right? So that you could say at this difficulty, at Bitcoin at 6,000 or 4,000 or whatever, this is what you might make. And this was really kind of ahead of the curve, because a lot of people were trying to get the lowest power cost they could and then pray. And so we were kind of making investment grade documents at that time. That was a little bit before what we see now, which is the institutional side of mining kind of finally coming in and professionalizing. And so that led us to kind of know all the major players in the North American market, a little bit of the global market, South America as well. And from there, we were doing our own projects as well. Later on, obviously, Binance kind of comes along into the picture and is looking for, kind of help with their new product, which is the pool side. As you might know, I mean, we started in April, the pool, and since then we've become, top 5. So it's been a kind of wild ride up. And so not necessarily being a miner specifically, but having that really deep understanding of the pain points for miners, what they go through, who they are, and what they value in a pool has definitely, I think, alongside of my incredible colleagues there, has really, obviously, I think, made a huge difference. And so that's kind of my abridged story. Obviously, there's all the twists and turns that you could expect in a crypto world. So
Now, I'm really excited to have you on to talk more specifically about the pooling side of mining, because I've had a few different people on the show to talk about different aspects of the mining community and industry, but we haven't really talked about pools yet here on my channel. And so, you mentioned that, way back you had started like on your computer, and then, now here you are, the business development manager for Binance Pool. And so can you talk a little bit about the benefit of using a pool, and if someone is interested in getting into mining, maybe why they would even want to join a pool? Maybe we'll start off on that kind of high level.
Basically on the most basic level, you have everyone kind of competing for one pie, right? So I like to talk about something I came up with a long time ago, which is you're in class and the teacher says, I've got a Snickers bar. Well, actually, with nut allergies, it may not be a Snickers bar anymore, but I've got a candy bar for the first person or group that answers these couple of math questions, right? And so obviously, maybe the smartest kid in the class, John, Sarah, whoever it may be, will say, all right, I think I can answer those questions faster than everyone else. Then there's a bunch of us that are saying, well, if we all, kind of pool our resources and each answer two of these math problems, well, then maybe we'll get the Snickers bar and we'll split it up proportionally. And then there might be the kid who's looking over all of our shoulders and trying to submit them faster. And that would be kind of the three types of mining, right? You've got the solo miners who, in scale, if they're large enough, they essentially get the whole block reward plus transaction fees. You've got pool miners, which make up most of the world of mining, which is what we service. And then finally, you've got botnets and hackers and everyone else that's kind of, trying to use the computational power of everyone else and not necessarily, pay for the electricity or the computers for that matter. So in terms of rewards for miners, most of them, unless you're on an incredibly massive scale, are going to look and say, let's all pool our resources together, essentially, and get the block rewards. And at Binance Pool, one of the main things that we do is FPPS. There's many different settlement systems for paying out miners, but this particular one is full pay per share, which means both transaction fees and block rewards. And so some other pools, have different ways of paying out, but that's really important, considering that I think last month it was over 10% of the like kind of the total value of mining was in transaction fees. And obviously, this is going up. If you look at the DeFi craze, we see, I think there was a crazy like 40% at some points during the summer was transaction fees. So, the main value of pool mining is that you're pooling your resources with everyone else, and then proportional to your work, you're getting paid pretty much. So you can do it from one GPU or one ASIC all the way up to 10,000 beyond. That's what it is.
So earlier you mentioned, being in the top five, and that was something I kind of wanted to ask you about, was what differentiates Binance Pool from other popular mining pools like Slush Pool, Final Hash, Poolin, some of the ones that a lot of people are familiar with?
Absolutely. Well, so I think before we answer that question, we need to really understand what Binance is doing even in the pool space. And that's fundamentally both providing really transparency and more value in terms of the stack, right? We see a lot of traditional pools which started well before us. Like I said, we're very young, we're very new to the space, that make a lot of their money off of basically charging miners a small percentage. So a traditional percent would probably be anywhere from 2.5 to 1%. So that's their model, right? At Binance, we really understand that, it's really, if you look at the Binance ecosystem, it's circular. So we've got kind of the exchange straight up in the middle, and then all of these other programs and services kind of add to that. And so we're not necessarily bound by the same constraints that a traditional pool would be in terms of our pool fees. So right now, obviously, we're running, as I might have mentioned, but we're running a 0% pool fee promotion right now. And a lot of people, I get questions all the time. I get calls all the time. How can you do that? You know what I mean? Where's the trick? And it's really, because miners and I think crypto people in general, I mean, for so long, we've been in a little bit in the shadows. Obviously now it's changing, but they're like, where's the trick? Where are you making your money? And it's basically, we're driving more traffic and liquidity to our exchange. And so, so the mining pool can afford to, really do that. And that's fundamentally what changes us from, kind of a regular mining pool into an exchange mining pool. I guess the other thing from there is that we've got this, largest exchange by volume, and we've got such a strong background in the financial products category that a lot of what Binance Pool does really well is not only the transparency and the stability of the actual pool, but we also build everything else out on top of it that allows our miners to make more in terms of their digital assets, in terms of interest, et cetera. And so those are really big key things, stuff like pool savings, right? You're mining with us, you deposit 5 Bitcoins, you can make 20% APY on it. I mean, all the way through to, dual savings, different settlement prices. Either you settle in a stable coin or BTC. These are all things that exist kind of in the ecosystem of Binance that allows us to kind of take the efficiency of proof of work mining, combine it with proof of stake, and the saving side as well, which is more kind of internal, and allow our miners to make significantly more. And so that's really kind of I think the big differentiating feature and why we've grown so fast is because people see that and they're like, once they get past that, 0%, like where are you taking that money to, I can make 20% extra, they're good to go. So.
No, that's really interesting because one of the things I wanted to ask you about was kind of the trends you're seeing in the kind of pool space. And it seems to me like, having that exchange, kind of conjunction gives you guys a really big competitive advantage. So I'm curious, do you think that other exchanges will start launching similar programs, once they kind of see what you guys have been doing? Or just in general, what are some of the trends you see coming down the line for pools?
Sure. I mean, the pool game is very interesting. I think, like mining in many ways, it's a race to zero. And that's, when we started at Harpia and looking at mining, what we were seeing a lot of was essentially, let's go and find a warehouse somewhere or find something grid tied, or I guess more now power producing side. And let's try to get our power price to the absolute lowest.
Right.
And so what you see in the mining industry, I think really, which is really key right now, is that a lot of the mining hardware, the ASICs that people are using, to some extent, FPGAs, GPUs, we're reaching functional limits in terms of really like what you could do. I mean, the nanometer size is going smaller. Sooner or later, electrons will start jumping. And so those 50% year over year, or generation over generation increases are going to really, I think, go down. And so people are looking for, I guess, the next efficiency gain. And whether that's and the reason I say this is because miners are starting to pay more attention to what their pool is doing. Because before it's like, all right, we're kind of mining a speculative asset, we're doing this, we know that if we buy the next generation of ASICs, we have a decent power price, we're going to do okay. Now more institutional players coming in, the margins are getting thinner for miners, even as the price rises. It's becoming way more competitive than it was even a couple of years ago. And so the little things on the edges, right, in terms of taxes and pools and other people taking a little percentage of what you're making as a miner, are becoming really, really much more important. And so to that end, I see a lot of the exchanges have a definite benefit, because again, we don't have to charge the same. That's not where we make our money. We don't have to charge the same, pool fees, so to speak. So example, right now, we've got VIP tiers that correspond to the exchange, which I think is kind of revolutionary. If you're, buy, sell, trade, all of that stuff is cheaper once you're a miner. On our ETH side, our normal fee is 0.5%, which is already super low. Right now it's 0. On our BTC side, it starts at 2.5, goes all the way down depending on how big you are as a client. 0 right now. So these are, that I think in and of itself is revolutionary, because you can only do that with an external, like a different way of making money. And that has to do with funneling, client value through the whole chain, so to speak. In terms of really like different things that are going on in the pool space, I think a lot of it has to do with the quantification of hash rate as well. And what I mean by that is, sooner or later, I think people are going to start waking up and realizing that hash rate in and of itself is the value, right? So much of this, and looked at by the government and everyone, is really that, okay, BTC or whatever you're mining is the value when it's coming out, but it's generally not a one-to-one, right? Especially with different payout systems, and so unless you're solo mining, it may not be that exact Bitcoin that you receive on the other end. And so what's to say that, the hash rate in and of itself is not the value, right? And so I think more pools are going to start looking at that. I think profit switching algorithms are going to be a bigger thing. And so these are all things that, with our background, in the space, that we can develop a lot quicker. But I do see, obviously, there's going to be more competition on the exchange and pool side, pool exchange, that kind of melding.
So you'd mentioned institutional players kind of getting into the game, and is that also a trend that you foresee happening, like more different government agencies and large companies wanting to get into the mining space?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to have been around in this space long enough to really see the difference. One of the things I wrote on LinkedIn recently, which I really firmly stand behind, is that 2017, even 2016, all the way through 2018, even 2019, uh, Bitcoin mining or mining in general was a speculative play, right? Or it was seen, at least by the big guys, by the traditional financial system, as a speculative play. And now it's being seen as speculative not to be exposed to Bitcoin. And
Right.
I think, right, that like I mean, I think you've seen this too, right,
Hmm.
with some of the some of the stuff you report on in terms of the broader
Hmm.
Bitcoin space, the broader crypto space. But right now, you see, nine-figure investments on the weekly coming in.
Right.
Firms as old as Mass Mutual at 169 years old are now investing in Bitcoin. And it's interesting to see that, you know, you have a dwindling pool of available Bitcoin on exchanges, right? A lot of it is going off into cold storage,
Hmm.
which is, a little bit worrying sometimes. I mean, we're okay, um, but a lot of these major players are looking towards miners, especially people like PayPal and Square, or companies,
Hmm.
and they're looking towards that, and they're saying, where can we get this next allocation of Bitcoin? So the
Right.
craziness right now is that we can't produce. I mean, algorithmically and mathematically, we can't produce Bitcoin fast enough for the demand, right?
Right.
And so you see PayPal, Square buying up, Grayscale buying up every single available mined Bitcoin that is available to be sold, and in some cases prepaying. And so that's really a fundamental difference when we look at institutions and how they're being exposed to this. MicroStrategy around, basically within the last 6 months made it cool, Michael Saylor and all that.
Yeah.
I think PayPal made it real. And now
Mm.
everyone is filing in and basically saying, all right, how can we get exposure to this digital asset class, in particular Bitcoin? And so in many ways, I think pools have a lot to do with that as well, right?
Mm.
We are kind of the aggregation point for a lot of this mining. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we develop certain tools and programs to allow, miners to make more, and then thus service the other side, which is the institutions, as well as obviously our exchange is a big touch point for
Mhm.
the on and off ramp of fiat all over the world into Bitcoin and other cryptos.
So we're kind of coming up on our time, but I have one more thing that I want to ask you about that you just mentioned. You mentioned prepaying for Bitcoin. What does that mean exactly? Can you walk us through what that dynamic is and
Sure.
that process is?
Yeah. So normally there's essentially a system where you go on an exchange, or you go to an OTC desk and you buy Bitcoin at
Hmm.
market rate, or whatever you negotiate. Prepaying is basically saying you're going to have X amount of, and this goes back to, right, hash rate and quantifying that. We understand your stability. You're going to have X amount of hash rate, and now we're going to essentially prepay for the rights and the access to that Bitcoin,
Mm.
or whatever crypto you're mining. And so that's really what's happening right now, is that, and I go back to some of these institutional players, MicroStrategy, et cetera. Um, they just bought another $50 million of Bitcoin at 19,400, which in
Ooh.
my mind proves, right, that it's not necessarily the price that we're looking at
Mm.
in terms of access. It's more that you can buy a tranche that large. And so
Mm.
we see a lot of exposure on the higher end, right, in terms of buying a lot of Bitcoin as prepayment, and basically saying, miner, here's your money. You're going to produce this. Is going to go straight to us through our wallet, through our institution, into cold storage, into the pool, like for PayPal to service our clients, etc. So that's, I think, a fundamental difference, and something I didn't see happening for another 5 years. But I think the pandemic and the switch to digitalization of
Right.
money has really changed a lot of that. So
Well, Jesse, this has been just such a great conversation. I know that I've learned a lot more about the whole pool side of the mining industry, and I'm sure everyone watching this has gotten some great nuggets as well. If someone wants to check out Binance Pool and find you online and connect with you, where should they go next?
sure, you can go to Binance Pool, pool.binance.com, and check us out. We are obviously localized for, so, on the US side, go to, um, go to Binance.us, right? If you're
Right.
kind of in the country, um, our pool services are tied, as I said, to Binance Pool, so pool.binance.com, and essentially that's where you'd find us. If you want to email me, my email is jesse.phillips@binance.com. You can ask any questions you'd like. You can also check out our ecosystem, everything that we have to offer, including Binance Earn, right? As I said, all of our savings, stakings,
Hmm.
fixed and flexible, where you can invest your different types of cryptos and earn interest with us. And that's where you'd find me. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I pretty much live on that website. So as I know a lot of us do, and as well as on Telegram and WhatsApp. Um, just look me up on Instagram, sorry, on LinkedIn, and uh, and connect with me there, and I'll be happy to share all of that information.
Awesome. Well, Jesse, thank you again so much for taking the time to come on the show and just chat with us more about Binance Pool. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, and we look forward to having everyone there. We are pretty much the fastest growing pool out there. We're giving the most back to our customers, and fundamentally, I think that we are the best value out there. So really appreciate your time and highlighting this. I know a lot of people don't necessarily know who we are because we're so new, and this is a great opportunity to bring out that knowledge. And also, thank you for having me on the show. And um, as a side note, I really appreciate what you're doing for the industry,
Mm.
and exposing this, especially on platforms that are really kind of underexposed to the crypto, like TikTok and Instagram, right? To bringing that out. So all power to you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate that. And have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you, Leah. Take care.